when I conduct my own.
Yes. Well, welcome everyone to SPED Homeschool Conversations. This is our weekly broadcast put on by SPED Homeschool, and we talk about things that are related to special education and homeschooling. And this month, our focus is electives. So, all those non core things that oftentimes we forget are important. And so, we're going to focus this whole month on just how to make those a bigger priority than just the reading, writing, and math, which a lot of times we find our kids struggle with. And tonight, my special guest is Oswaldo Coello. That's
You
a
got
tongue twister. And he is with Mr. C's Music Academy, or Homeschool Music Academy, and we're going to talk tonight about just incorporating electives into your special education homeschool, and just how do we do that? What's involved, and Oswaldo has a really good personal story too, to back up his experience as a teacher and as a parent and a new homeschool dad, which I just found out. So we're going to talk a lot about all that, but I do want to start out by thanking Right Shop. They are sponsoring this episode of SPED Homeschool Conversations, and we just want to thank them for that. As a nonprofit, we are sponsored by donors like you, our viewers, and by our partners. And so, Right Shop, thank you for that. And we'll hear more from them in the middle of this conversation. But we also want to hear from you. So if you're watching and you want to be part of this conversation, you have questions about electives or just something that we're talking about, you want to make a comment or have a question that Oswaldo can answer, then put it up, and we'd love to include that in our conversation tonight. So thank you so much for joining us, Oswaldo, and just taking time out of your busy schedule. Like you said, you've been live a lot lately.
yes. All day, beginning of the school year. Hi, everyone. By the way, hello. My name is I'm Oswaldo Coello, also known as Mr. C. Okay, by my students, and I'm part of Mr. C's Homeschool Music Academy. But yeah, been pretty busy. Started the new school year, and I do
Mm-hmm.
happen to teach. I teach that my profession is teaching general music. Okay, also privately, I also do private teaching as
Yeah.
well. But yes, and now I am a homeschool parent.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm very excited. My wife and I both are very excited about that.
That's really neat. Yeah, and and those anxieties, as even as a teacher, coming into homeschooling, a lot of people think, well, if you're a teacher, you have a teaching certificate, then this homeschooling thing should just be easy, shouldn't it? it's it tends to all throw us for a loop because it's completely different.
Yes,
So.
absolutely. Well, the thing is, to separate teacher and parent is really doesn't make sense to me. Actually, you
Mm-hmm.
teacher when you're a parent, you're a teacher. Okay, they
Exactly.
go hand in hand. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the way I've always felt
Yeah,
about
that
that.
is so true. And we forget that because we classify a teacher as somebody who's been trained, and yet we've been training our kids. I think somebody said to me the other day, well, you train your kids how to tie their shoes, how to, use the restroom, eat, and, all these other things. Why is it difficult to teach them math
Yeah.
or anything else?
Uh-huh. No.
So, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, lots of all the different subjects can be confusing sometimes, on what
Mm-hmm.
to do. Sometimes it's just, mastering your technique, what
Yeah.
works for your child, knowing your
Mm-hmm.
child. And, I always feel like homeschool parents have a very great advantage because they know their child since birth, and they know a
Mm-hmm.
lot of their habits. They know a lot about them. And there's even the unexplained bond that you can't really put into
Right.
words that a
Mm.
parent would have with their child. So they're really in a good position to teach more than they would think sometimes. And I can
That's
speak
good
that from my
encouragement.
own
Mm-hmm.
experience as well. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, so that is so true. Yeah, we forget that too easily. Thank you for reminding us. So, we're going to talk about special education, and I know that you have a bit of a personal story with how just you're passionate for helping students that struggle, and just how does that tie into your own personal story?
Okay, I do have a background with special education. I did work. I did have some experience working with special needs, kids with special needs, from 2 years old, actually, even
Wow.
from an early intervention youth
Mm-hmm.
autism program. So
Wow.
I've done that. But more than that, you know, I I see the when we say disadvantage, that's kind of a weird statement for me because I mean, I can say from my own personal story, I have had experienced some kind of disadvantage. It's not that I was special needs, but I did have an attention to focus when I
Mm-hmm.
was that was caught on in elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that they used to have was, they called it resource room when I was
Right.
in
I
elementary. Yeah,
remember that.
yeah, they
Uh-huh.
used to have resource room. So I had one-on-one time with the teacher. If you ask me what the teacher's name was back back in those days, I completely forget. Uh, however, it was such a great help, and just through my own academic experiences, a lot of times I felt frustrated. A lot of times, I still didn't, even though I was better at focusing a little bit, I still wasn't always making the grade, so to speak. So. For me, finding music, and that's what I do. Again, as a
Right.
music teacher,
Uh-huh.
finding music was the help that I needed. And I didn't know it either. I just knew that I was interested in it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and that's what that ultimately is what kind of saved my academic career, and
Mm.
brought a lot of connections, brought a lot of things together, put it together for me like a puzzle. It was just that missing piece, that I needed,
Right.
and
Yeah.
for me, music has been my passion, and now I love that I can share it. Now I love that I can,
Mm-hmm.
whoever I come across, through professional, unprofessional, whatever, I still, in some way, shape, or form, I'm using music as that catalyst to help,
Mm-hmm.
with other things, with a lot of different things. It has such a deep connection to other subjects as well.
Right. I love that word, the words you use, missing piece. And because really I mean, that's what we're looking for those kids that struggle and all those things that, we want to make them fit into these molds, except we have such unique kids. And it is that missing piece that we need to just connect, and it will connect everything. And
Yeah.
I love that music has been that for you. And I know with different kids, it's different things. And we're going to talk a lot about, just how do we figure that out too?
All
Because that's
right.
not an easy thing.
Uh-huh.
So that gives you a lot of empathy, though.
Yes.
In working with students, what can you share with parents about working with a student who struggles and pulling from your own empathy to help you be a stronger teacher and an advocate, to them, but also encourager as
Right.
well.
Hmm. Well, the thing is, I don't like to look at, I don't like to look at, a lot of parents, and I can say this from experience. A lot of parents will come to me. I've spoken with other parents that in times past they felt like, well, I've done this and I've done that and I've looked into this and I've looked into that, and I just don't know what to do anymore. That I've had those conversations,
Uh-huh.
and it's and sometimes, and a lot of times, it really is disheartening. I see
Yeah.
parents who just feel overwhelmed, so overwhelmed, they break down and cry in front of me,
Mm.
things like that,
Yeah.
and I feel for them. But what I try to explain to them is we don't look at what can you do further, as a parent.
That's a
It
good
you
point.
know
Yeah.
you don't continue, yeah, you search for different solutions, you search for different ways, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just really what every parent and every teacher should think is that it's a matter of time. Try out. It's
Mm.
about experimentation.
Yeah.
Try out. As a teacher, I've had to experiment, many different ways. From my first year of teaching, just from my first year of teaching,
Mm-hmm.
I learned one of the key factors that my students, I used to let them pick their seating. I'd have my
Oh,
seating,
huh.
it's just something as simple as that. I
Right.
I would let them pick their seating,
Hmm.
okay? And they would come in, I'd say good morning, they would pick their, and then what I found out, what I saw right away is that they used to fight over seats. They used to, they used to yell at each other. I sat here first. No, 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 and that a lot of time would a lot of times would take a lot of time just getting settled, when it really
Mm.
should be 1, 2, 3. So um, after that first school year, then I decided, okay, this is where I went wrong. I
Hmm.
need to assign seats. Okay. I
Uh-huh.
Now I need to assign seats. Like, in other words, it's no negotiation. Wherever I put you, that's
Mm-hmm.
where you're going to sit. That's where,
Right.
okay. And I don't mean literally physically, but wherever I
Right.
assign you, whatever seat I assign you, that's where you're going
Mm-hmm.
to sit. So they had to learn the routine, and that's part
Yes.
of the routine, so
Mm-hmm.
it's something little like that. And as we know, elementary students, they thrive on routine. They need routine as early as
Yes.
pre-K. As
So
early as
important.
pre-K, they need routines, and you get to see how they really need it even all throughout.
Mm-hmm.
As they grow older, they need a certain routine. And why?
Mm-hmm.
Because they have to have a foundation, a basis, for everything. And
So
once
true.
they
Mm-hmm.
learn the routine, it becomes regular, like the back of their hand. And after a while, it starts with the foundation,
Mm-hmm.
and then they get to choose, but they know how to. And then they know how to choose. So they get to middle
Mm-hmm.
school, and say the teacher is, more lenient on picking your seat, for example,
Yeah.
then they know how to do it without incident, without other issues,
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, they have a certain amount of boundaries
oh
that
yeah.
they've grown, they've kind of grown into understanding the boundaries, where when they're younger it's
uh,
like the sky's the limit. And
right.
I think that's a really good point for parents who are homeschooling too.
Yeah.
I mean, having those really strict boundaries when they're younger is
Mhm.
important, because I know, yeah, I mean, we want to train our kids to be able to teach, be independent learners, but it's
Mhm.
not going to happen when they're in first grade.
Right.
And
Right.
I mean, that is so
Absolutely.
true.
Absolutely. So, yeah. So, so yeah. But I guess coming back to, as far as encouragement,
Hmm.
it's trial and error. So I can
Yes.
say that even just
Uh-huh.
as an electives teacher, trial and error has to continue to happen.
Hmm.
Like you said, set boundaries. Rules and expectations. Let
Hmm.
them look at it, recite it. Just a recitation of that on a daily basis.
Hmm.
And once they get to know that, then eventually they find who they are through that discipline, and
Right.
they get to do it on their own, more independently after that, and make the right choices.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
but,
That's really good, because yeah, we can kind of leave it way too open with electives,
mm,
instead of, giving a few choices,
mm,
and letting them choose from those couple of things. But I love that you're focusing on, that it is trial and error, because I
mm,
think a lot of times we think that, well, these teachers in the schools, they know everything. They like have their lesson plans laid out, but yet you talk to special ed teachers, and a lot of teachers just in general, and it is trial and error. And
mm.
with every new group of students that comes in, it's a whole new
The
whole
new
new
experience.
thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's encouraging. I mean, it is. It's, and our working with our own kids. I think maybe before we even started the broadcast, you were saying, your child better than anybody else, and you've had them since the beginning, and so. You probably know more on how to try and what not to.
Right. But
So
that doesn't mean that the challenges don't come. Exactly, the challenges will still be there. You know,
that is good. Yes.
because
Mm-hmm.
there's always a different level. There's always they grow into a different stage.
Yes.
So it's yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So challenges come. You have to be willing to be flexible, willing to try it. If it doesn't work, you try something else, and be okay with it. Be okay that, okay, that didn't work. We try something
Right.
else. And the interesting thing about trying something else, A lot of times, we can plan, and I'm a firm believer in planning.
Mm-hmm.
I have my lesson plans. I look at curriculum, and I build my lesson plans. I do everything step by step. But
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times, things are incidental. Things can
Yes.
become very incidental. A happy
Mm.
accident, I like to call it.
Okay.
Yeah, I like to
Yes.
call it a happy accident. I explain to my students a lot. It's a lot in the way music happens, actually.
Hmm.
You could think of you can go as far back as early as possible. And I love to tell this to my students. The more I like to make fun. Uh, it's false, but it's like the first caveman, ooga. I'll do the little ooga sound, like, and they'll laugh, and
Uh-huh.
they hit their club against a piece of wood, and out came a sound, and they liked it. And they're like, oh, and then I'll do the caveman voice, me likey. It's a lot of fun, but then
Uh,
they tried, and then they tried to replicate it, they tried to
mm-hmm.
replicate that sound, now they tried it twice. Oh, they tried it
Mm-hmm.
3 times, and they tried it a little differently,
Uh-huh.
and then the purpose of music, they tried to replicate it and continue to do it. So once they had that
Mm.
nice happy little accident, they tried to do it over and over again. They wanted to see if they could do it over and over again, and guess what? They
Right.
could. That's why we have the music that we love today, because
Mm-hmm.
once they had that happy accident, they practiced it. Yeah. So that usually gets a lot of eye openers, and then still continue
Uh-huh.
laughs as well, because they do the voice again, Mr. C.
Right.
Not
Well, when
now.
you make things fun, it's everything's better when it's fun. So
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. Well, we as parents, I probably just need to learn to loosen up a little bit. I know I've learned that a lot from my children over the last 18 years. So,
Yeah.
uh, but but you made a really interesting point that I wanted to point out is that. Um, Oftentimes, core subjects, we start out with structure.
Yeah.
When we start out with elective subjects, we often start with the creativity and then build in the structure.
Mhm.
And so allowing students to explore and to have that hands-on, that creative experience before making it as too concrete
Mhm.
can help a lot of the kids that struggle, because a lot of kids that struggle tend to be very left brain dominant.
Yeah.
That creative side does not, when you're learning to read, you're not using that a whole lot. And when you're learning math, you're not using it a whole lot. And so all these things that they struggle in, they find these activities that say, ooh, that creative part of you is good.
Uh-huh.
And I love that. So, yeah, that's that just it struck me when you said that. I thought, oh yeah, that's exactly why it is,
Yeah.
and being able to continue to encourage that creativity, because we can lose that really easily as adults, can't we?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. But at the same time, yeah, we discover that creativity that's there, Um, at the same time, we have to make that connection with the structural part as well,
Mm-hmm.
And that's another thing that I tell my students is that, music is creative. Yeah. Happy accidents happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then the need to replicate, the need to bring that sound back that they liked so much. Oh, the
Mm-hmm.
question is, how do we do that? Now we got to go by structure. Now we got to
Yes.
look at the structure and see how we did that. And then through the regiment of
Mm-hmm.
repetitious practice, that's really it.
Right.
Repetitious practice, that is the structure in itself, and even the way you repeat practice. So, like, for
Mm-hmm.
example, I always relate this to sort of a map. Okay, if
Mm-hmm.
we want to get, geographically, if we want to get from point A to point B, right? Then in order to get there, we might use the map. We'll follow the map, and we'll take the path that's there.
Mm-hmm.
After a while, of course, yeah, you discipline yourself to still taking that same path to appropriately get to where you're going.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and music is like that. So, in other words, I always tell my students, I'm not getting, they say, I'm not getting this part. Every time I come over here, every time I come to the middle part of the song, I'm not getting this. I'm having so much
Mm.
trouble. And they display their frustration in the most dramatic ways.
Right, of course.
But I feel them too. At the same time, I totally understand because I was
Uh-huh.
there.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, ooh, I can't get this either. You know,
Right.
but what most of the time, what I found most of the time is what they're lacking. Okay, and I even learned this from my professors.
Hmm.
Took me till college to understand this. Okay, but meanwhile, I can see how in high school when I was really into music and I was doing it what my professor said, but it didn't come to me. So one thing that she told me, and this is in college, trying to get through my piano exam, which included 24 different songs that I
Oh
had
my
to be a
goodness.
yeah.
For someone that can only play with one hand,
I had to learn 24 different songs for my piano
Hmm.
test so that I can student teach. Okay? I had to
Wow.
be proficient in piano, and if I got anything below a B, they wouldn't let me teach.
Hmm.
Even if my loan was paying for the credits and everything, they would not let me teach until I passed. So
Wow.
so I was having a lot of trouble and getting through 24 different songs, because what I
Hmm.
would do in my regimental practice, I would be practicing one song like maybe like 5 times. And then I
Hmm.
moved to the next song and then I would be practicing that about 5 or 4 times. And, if I was good, I would, practice it a few times and then move on to the next.
Hmm.
So slowly but surely I was getting down to my list, but not all the way. Okay.
Uh-huh.
So she said, she's like, well, it's been such and such amount of time. Have you gone through all your songs? And I said, well, no, I'm still going over song number 10, you know, and,
Mm-hmm.
and then she's like, so you haven't gone through all your songs yet? How are you with your other songs? Well, honestly, I'm having a hard time, and she goes, so you've practiced song number 10 about how many times now? Well, I did it about 5 times just now. And you haven't gotten to your other songs yet? No, you're practicing wrong. She tells me, you're practicing wrong.
Hmm.
I said, well, what do I do? She's like, you kind of know the rest of your songs because you've gone over them at least once, right? Yeah. Okay. Go back to the beginning. Go to the first song in the test, okay? Because in the test, they're just going to they're just going to test your proficiency on all the songs in that order, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, okay. And she said, okay, start from the first song, go all the way, go, just play it once. Play the first song once. I'm like, once, but I still have
Mm-hmm.
trouble. Listen, be quiet, listen. Practice, yeah, sometimes I'll be like, but, you have to tell me to be quiet. That's the only way I'll listen. She's like, so listen, go through every song once, go all the way down
Hmm.
the list, all 24 songs, okay? It doesn't matter if you mess up in the middle.
Right.
You mess up,
Yep.
just keep playing through
Keep
it,
going.
okay? Keep going.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get to song number 24, go back to the beginning of the first song and do the same thing again and do that about 20 times. I'm like, really? She's like, yeah, that's going to work.
Hmm.
Really? But even if she said, be quiet, listen. She's very tough on me. She's very tough, Just be quiet and
Oh.
listen to me.
Mm-hmm.
Do each song once, go through the entire list, and then go back to the beginning again and do it again. Just do it about 20 times a day. Okay.
Mm.
And after that, put it away. Don't look at it for the next day. The next day, do it another 20 times. Okay. So, part of me still didn't listen. I would do it like 40, 60 times. I would do 40. I was really like, I really wanted to get this, but I
Mm-hmm.
found that doing that really reinforced my muscle motor memory. Okay. And those fine motor
Yes.
skills. It
Uh-huh.
reinforced that, like typing.
Mm-hmm.
Piano is the same way, is very similar in that way. So
Yeah.
I had to do that over and over. I had to do my 20 times a day, sometimes 40 times a day, because I was
Mm-hmm.
really pressured. I needed to pass that test. But
Mm.
I did that and my muscle motor memory kicked in. I found that a lot of the songs I was having deficits in, I was getting so much better because I
Mm.
didn't stop I didn't stop in the middle of the song. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
repeat something. I was holding myself from getting from point A to point B. That's the idea.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
Mm-hmm.
so a lot of times it's so, and that idea is just so,
Right.
it's like, really, that's all I needed to do. It's actually so simple. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
hard doing it, but when you get there, or when you start to do it, then you realize, man, I was doing this. I was making it harder on myself the entire time.
Well, you were trying to be perfect.
Yeah, exactly. But in doing so, that was my enemy. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
my enemy. So I tell my students the same thing. They only have to worry about one song, right? So,
Yeah.
so I said, you keep stopping in the, now I'm
Mm-hmm.
tough like my professor. You keep stopping in the middle of that. Yeah, every time I get here, I always mess up, so I start from the beginning. I'm like, no, no,
Mm.
what did I tell you?
Because it trains you to
Right.
stop and to make the mistake right there.
Exactly. So you never get past
Never get
the
past it.
wall that you've created there.
Mm-hmm.
That dead end.
Yeah.
You've never gone past it. So you have to go through it to make the
Mm.
mistakes regardless, because eventually
So
through those
important.
repetitions,
Mm-hmm.
your muscle motor memory kicks in, or even with singing, and everything. That's the thing. I
Yeah.
found that, that it's the way we study for a spelling test.
Mm-hmm.
We
Right.
had 20 words, and then our spelling test was on Friday, so you better have them memorized. What did
Uh-huh.
we do? We recited our 20 words about 20 times,
Mm-hmm.
looking at it. And then
Right.
when you did your 20 times, okay, time for 21. Number 21, you turn it over. You turn that sheet over, test
Mm-hmm.
to see if you got it. Test yourself if you got it. So,
Right. Yeah.
so yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Then that's a really good life skill to have across the board, because I know when people teach writing, they tell you write through your mistakes.
mhm.
Misspell the words. You can't get the creative part out if you keep stopping at the technical.
Right.
And there's so many other things. It's like when you record a video. I don't know. When you first did video, did you keep stopping yourself? Because
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Oh
and I
yeah.
finally just realized live is like the best, because I can't stop, and I have to force myself to just push through those times when I can't think of the right word or anything else.
Exactly. Yeah. 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 But when you're trying to record it, yeah, you're just trying to get it perfect, and then you're trying to,
Yeah,
okay, cut, print, okay, we're good,
exactly.
and then yeah. So I've had, I mean, you can ask my wife too. You hear some loud. I'm upstairs. I have this room. This room is where I do all my music and teaching and all that. And
Mm.
so she can tell you many times she hears these loud noises of frustration. Darn it! I gotta
Uh,
start over again. you know, she'll
it's so
look up
true.
like, oh,
Mm.
he's messing up again.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's funny.
So
So
yeah,
I want to thank Bud who's joining us. He said interesting. Thanks for watching, Bud.
that's my friend Bud. Hello.
Ah,
Yes,
awesome.
she's a she. Yeah.
Oh,
Hello, Bud.
awesome.
Nice to see you here. Thank you for joining.
At least it's a name I can pronounce. Sometimes
Yeah.
we have guests and I'm like, oh, I'm probably massacring your name as I say it.
No, really.
So,
No, when I first found out Bud was a female, I was like, oh. You usually think of, hey, Bud.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I didn't tell you that, Bud. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, but I still love you. I still love you.
Oh, awesome. Well, we're going to take a quick break and hear from our sponsor, and then I'm going to have Oswaldo come back. We're going to talk about just like picking curriculum, or, just electives, and how to discern where your students at, what to kind of go through as far as trying to figure out what's going to be best for them, and as a parent, as a student, and a whole bunch of questions like that. So I'll let you take a break, and I'm going to read a little something from our sponsor, Right Shop. So just want to thank you, Right Shop, for sponsoring this episode of SPED Homeschool Conversations. And like I said at the very beginning, we are a nonprofit, and so we have sponsors that support our efforts to empower parents to homeschool or to teach special education at home, and also donors like you. You can donate on our website as well. So you can go to spedhomeschool.com to find out more about that. But Right Shop is a writing curriculum, and So they say, how are your homeschool and writing lessons going for you lately? Are there tears of frustration or long minutes of staring at a blank piece of paper because I don't know what to write about? Well, here's the solution: Write Shop curriculum. Finally, a writing program that understands the challenges of teaching writing. Write Shop has options for kindergarten all the way through high school. With engaging step-by-step lessons, Write Shop gives students the necessary building blocks for the writing process, so there's zero frustration. And Write Shop not only teaches kids how to write, it shows you how to teach. So you'll learn to guide them through the writing process and inspire even the most reluctant writers. Parents rave about the results. Sherry in Florida said, I'm so pleased with Write Shop. My 8th grader, who is lukewarm about writing and really didn't write too well, is blossoming. And Haley in California says, thank you so much for creating Write Shop. It's been a pleasure to teach this curriculum, and the results are phenomenal. Our son went from hating writing to asking for more. So visit writeshop.com to take the placement test and to find out which level best suits your child, tween or teen. With Write Shop, teaching writing has never been easier. And so we just want to thank you, Write Shop, for that sponsorship, and definitely check out what they have to offer. I know they have some freebies. If you check out our, we have a free online conference right now, and they have some free downloadables on there in the vendor hall. So check that out. So we're going to bring Oswaldo back and continue talking about incorporating electives into special education, and just so much good information you have to share with us. I've really enjoyed this conversation already.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I'm looking at my questions that I sent you. So let's talk about advice for families. And, if they're thinking, well, I want to add an elective, but how do I go about figuring out what we should try this year? Do our kids give us any clues, or are there things that, I don't know, are there some just general, music definitely, as a starting point, relates to a whole lot. So what advice would you have for parents just saying, well, we'd like to add something, but I don't even know what or how?
Well, through a course that I created of Mr. C's Homeschool Music Academy, Mission Music, and just in general, what I've learned as a teacher, most of the time, especially this works in private setting, and private teaching is very, very similar to homeschooling. That's the way I look at that. And because you're going, first of all, you're actually going to the child's home. That for most teachers, that's the way I did. I did my side business. I do private lessons in their home. But at the same time, there was a time when I went to a center, and I had private students come to me. So I was working for that was, but still in a way, one of the things I always did was, started off by asking the student, what kind of music genres are they interested in? What style of music?
Yes.
What music do you listen to? Things like that, and so that's some of the things that I always teach, ask your child what they like, and that can go as far as anything. What do you think you're interested? Do you like art? Do you like soccer? What sports do you like? Because all of it really, physical education, art, music, all of those things incorporate a well-rounded academic environment. Okay, so we never discount anything, because all the special classes, they reinforce the core subjects. That I'm a firm believer in that, and I always prove that in my lessons with my students. But you always want to encourage just conversation with your student, with your child. Always want to get their feedback, and make it so that they're comfortable always doing that. You want to provide that kind of environment. What do you like, and so that they're able to answer, they're able to honestly tell you without feeling like it's a secret, or they have to that's really where you get to know them the most. And for one thing, it strengthens your rapport.
Mm-hmm.
with your child, with your student, it allows them to be able to trust you. You know, you
Yes,
develop that
that's so
trust.
true.
You know, they say, I can say I like this, and my dad, my mom, they're not going to get mad at me. you know,
Uh-huh.
or they're not going to say this is. So the reality is we're not trying to choose for them. We're trying to get as much feedback as possible, their honest opinion as to
Mm-hmm.
what they would like to try. Because they could have seen something on TV, they could have seen something on YouTube
Right.
that really
Yeah.
inspired them. You would never know it because maybe not because necessarily they were afraid to tell you, but the conversation never came up. So you're never going
Mm-hmm.
to know unless you ask them. Um, and what's awesome, it gives you the opportunity to, in a structural way as well.
Mm-hmm.
I always say this: take notes, everything that they
Yeah.
say. Come up with questions, just like you did for me
Mm-hmm.
for this interview. Yeah, come up with questions before the interview. And
Mm-hmm.
that's really what it is. And then you're
Right.
collecting data. You're collecting data. Okay, he
Mm-hmm.
says he likes this. She likes that. Just write it all down.
Right. Mm-hmm.
That's kind of like a very basic concept too. In planning lessons and all of that. I teach. I Through my business, Mr. C's Homeschool Music Academy, I teach parents how to teach music. Okay, um,
Right.
but and I always say it still always goes along with anything that they're learning.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to these electives, when it comes to all these electives, just don't make it as I would say to parents, don't make it as something that you have to choose for them. Okay, let them in that organized way make the choice. Let them
Mm-hmm.
verbalize and cognitively think, okay, what would I be good? What would I like to try?
Mm-hmm.
Because we really don't know what we're good at until we do it.
Do it. Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
that's it. That is what I would say. Parents, you know, ask your children honestly.
Yes.
Ask them
Mm-hmm.
and try to get as much feedback from them as possible. Some
Mm-hmm.
of them might be shy. Some of them might be shy. So what I would say is observe them carefully. Observe the things that
Yeah.
they do. Because they might be shy about saying it, but eventually, because talents,
Mm-hmm.
the revealing of talents is always incidental. It's always
Mm-hmm.
incidental, and I just as I said
Right.
before, all of a sudden, incidentally, you know,
Mm-hmm.
so and so hummed the song, and everything was on pitch. You know,
Wow.
um,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
funny story about that. I didn't know my grandfather, God rest his soul. But I didn't know on my father's side, I didn't know that he actually was a good singer. It never really
Hmm.
occurred to me, and I can thank I thank God first of all, and thank my discipline in music for not letting me able to not hear everything.
Mm-hmm.
As a musician, you hear everything. You
Yeah.
can't help it. So one day I hear him humming something, some random melody in the kitchen while cooking. He loved to cook. He always loved to cook, and I loved eating his food. But I never noticed how on pitch he was,
Wow.
and by trade he was a carpenter. You know,
Hmm.
that was his trade. So he was very manly.
Mm-hmm.
So I never looked at him as a singer. I never looked at him like he
Hmm.
would appreciate arts. And one day he was just I was like, wow,
Wow.
that sounds actually really good. I said, you like to sing, Grandpa? He's like, I'm almost done with dinner. Okay, leave me alone.
Uh,
So that really surprised me. But that's just,
hmm.
it's a funny happening that, really rang
Mhm.
true for me when it came to my own experience with my own children and my own
Mhm.
students. They, you tend to, a lot of students I would get would straight up tell me, I'd ask them, what kind of music do you like? I don't know. what kind of songs would you like to work on? I don't know. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and so so you have to probe a little further. Sometimes, and
That's
even if
so
all the probe,
true.
yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, so you might have to find certain questions that might get them to
Mm-hmm.
say it. And if that doesn't work, then watch, observe everything they do carefully. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, they'll eventually something has to be revealed. A happy
Right.
accident happens where you see, oh yeah, could be good at hockey. She could be
Mm-hmm.
great at football.
Right.
All of a sudden you find the talent somewhere, it
Mm-hmm.
emerges, and then
Yeah.
you go full blast. You
Mm-hmm.
go for it, and they'll thank you later for it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that you use that word again, try.
Yeah.
And I love that. So, yeah, just asking them those questions, observing, and I'm kind of reviewing what you just said succinctly is, asking, reviewing, trying, and, putting things in front of them too,
Right.
and probing. What more, and asking the right questions, those leading questions, not, do would you like to choose this option or this option I have to give you, instead, digging more,
Mhm.
and letting them reveal it. I love that, because they have so much to teach us about themselves,
Yeah.
and we can make so many assumptions about our children, and when we do that, we kind of close doors
Yes.
that they can definitely do way more than we can sometimes give them credit for.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we definitely want to never limit them. You know,
Hmm.
um, everybody's a different learner. There,
Yeah.
everyone's a different learner, but that doesn't mean worse or better.
Hmm.
Um, it just means that there's a time. There's a
Hmm.
time when it's going to happen, and always be hopeful that it'll be soon. And it will be,
Hmm.
and it will be. It'll come before you know it. That's what I've
Right.
learned.
Yeah. So I got a question for you,
Sure.
and this balance of trying,
Hmm.
but yet also not giving up.
Uh-huh. Right.
So a parent is going to say, okay, we've kind of discovered what that possible area of interest is. Now I want to commit to about a semester at least. How
Mhm.
do I keep my student on this task for this semester, and show them that they need to really stick with it so they can figure out if this really is something, instead of just trying it for 2 days and saying, it's not for me.
Right. All right. So yeah, yeah, I've definitely been there. Oh, I like this. I like this, but I'm tired of it,
Yeah,
so
right.
absolutely. So that's where structure has to come into play. For
Mm,
me, in my experience, just with my own children, oh, I'm kind of tired. I don't necessarily want to do dancing anymore. you know,
right. Yep. Uh-huh.
so you know, we can always find ways of maybe sometimes giving a break, you know, but maybe a short break. Maybe one weekend they don't go, but at the same time, remembering that we signed you up for this because you said you wanted to. Okay,
Yes.
so you
Mm-hmm.
said you wanted to. So let's stick it out. You almost make that deal, but it's not really make. I don't look at it as
Mm-hmm.
making a deal. I just don't
Right.
know. I don't know a better way of saying it.
Mm-hmm.
But
Right.
yeah, absolutely. But remember, you wanted to commit to it. So even with my own children, this is what we need to do until a certain time, and then while you're doing this, and that's the thing, you want to provide some sort of a structured choice making. Okay,
Yeah, I love
structured
that.
choice making
Mm-hmm.
while you're still doing this for a semester or for whatever time you do it. Let's look at some of the other stuff that you said that you might like to do. Okay, um,
Mm.
let's look at that and see. And you always want to kind of put a positive spin on it, not so much like
Right.
you said you wanted to do it, so that's it.
Yeah,
You're gonna
right.
do it. And I don't care what you do. No, no, yeah. I mean,
Then they won't
again,
want to commit to anything at all ever again.
right. You want yeah, it's finding that balance with
Mm-hmm.
choice making. You want to encourage choice making. You want to do that, but at the same time, you want to structure it in a controlled way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that there are. It's the same concept of there are rules to every game. Okay, I look at choice
Yeah,
making
I
as a
like
game.
that.
You know,
Uh-huh.
you can't just play the game without knowing the rules. Otherwise, how do you know you're
Mm,
winning? How do you know you're losing?
right.
How do you know you're
Yeah.
doing well?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, choice making is, yeah, there's that game that needs to be played, and with some other students, you have to play a little tougher with them. You got to be very tricky.
Yes.
You got to be very
Uh-huh.
tricky, and that also means knowing them,
Yeah.
knowing who
I
they
love
are and
that.
what they're going to
Mm-hmm.
do, what they're going to say. Expect them,
Mm-hmm.
their habits,
Right.
but at the same time, yeah, you want to structure that choice. Okay, well, I like to kind of play that game with my kids. Okay, you said you're going to do this. You said you want to do this. Okay, we have to keep doing this up until maybe till the month is over. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
but while you're doing that, let's look. What else did you want to do? Let's look into that. But you have to make a choice. Okay, you give
Mm-hmm.
them that. You give them those what do I want to say? I'm not getting the right word.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, but
you
it's boundaries.
Those boundaries. There you go.
Yes.
That was it.
Mm-hmm.
Ding,
Yep.
ding, ding.
You're making the right signs with your hands.
Yeah, you
So,
know what I
yep.
mean. But
No, but
yeah, boundaries.
that's
Yeah.
really good though. I've never thought of it that way of, yes, let's stick it out, but, encouraging the, well, what would be next? And it may get them to that point where they're through the tough stuff and they realize, oh, the practice is hard, but the results are good.
Mhm,
I want to stick with this.
mhm.
But yeah.
And also with that, maybe depending on the situation, I would also say you want to observe, assess what they're going through with that activity. Maybe they do need a break, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe they
That's a
need
good
a
point.
break. Maybe they felt overworked in that area, whatever they're doing, piano lessons, ballet lessons, tap,
Mm-hmm.
soccer, football, whatever. Um, Maybe they felt the burden of that overworking in those particular activities. So at that point, you want to say, okay, let's take a break for 3 months, 2 months, whatever
Mm-hmm.
you want to do. Let's take a break. Because you could come into that wall right there that where they create and they say, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. Okay, all right. You got about 3 months. Okay, you got about 3 months. After that, you're going to pick something. Okay, and you could use that. I wouldn't. Well, let's put it this way. I wouldn't necessarily put it the way I just did. I'm a character. I don't. I can be quite a character sometimes, but that's not reality. you know, um, I would say, yeah, I would say, okay, let's take a break for this amount of time. Okay, finish this month
Right.
out.
Yeah.
Let's take a break for a while. Yeah, and in the meantime, this will give you some time to look over some stuff that you might want to do. You said,
Mm-hmm.
and you can even remind them of past things. Maybe they were, and I find this happening. Maybe there were in families there were times where you couldn't provide that a particular activity because of
Mm-hmm.
work schedules and school schedules and
Right. Exactly. Mm-hmm.
things like that. So they didn't get to do what they originally wanted to do, and
Mm-hmm.
they chosen this other activity, and now they're overworked by it. Hey, maybe after a few months, maybe we can explore that activity you said before. Okay, remember when you said
Right.
you like this? You know,
Mm-hmm.
and that can get them, remind them of their
Yes.
first
Uh-huh.
love, so to speak, and then,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know,
Well,
and
it's that whole concept of hope. Hope
exactly,
can get you through so much.
right, right, right.
So true. We got one of our viewers. She said both my kids want to learn to play the violin. I think it's because mom played violin growing up.
Ah,
Um, and so, do you often see that? I mean, we talk about experiences, with our kids, and maybe they haven't experienced like other instruments or other things like that, and they
mhm.
just want to do what they've already heard of or know of, and they don't even realize all the other things. What might be an easy way to introduce kids to a more of a variety than what they're focused on?
More of a variety. I would say, I mean, really, a lot of times it just depends on again, your scheduling. Scheduling is so key. Planning,
Mm,
your schedules and things like that. So that can be a challenge in itself. Um, you know, you can always, the great thing about technology is you can go on YouTube and you can find concerts all the time on lots
oh
of different
yeah.
instruments. Nice little story. This kind of doesn't have too much to do with the question, but
That's okay.
it sort of
It's a
relates.
good story.
It sort of relates. A lot of times, I get students in the elementary, and their attitude towards recorder flute. Okay,
Oh yes.
yeah,
Uh-huh. Find that
you know,
first. Yes. It's
you know,
important.
I see their attitudes towards recorder flute, and they kind of said it without saying it. Let's put it this way.
Right.
So you have some of the class clowns, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's always one, at least one, you know. And I would see students grab the flute, after you taught them technique and everything,
Mm-hmm.
how to hold it, left hand on top, right hand on the bottom,
Mm-hmm.
and then they would grab their flute and toot their whistle, so to speak. They're just
Right.
the whole time. you know, they like to do that. Like, okay, really,
Mm-hmm.
what did I just show you? Let's try that again, please. And so,
Right.
so one of the things I like to do is I like to show videos on YouTube that the school has granted me access, and I show them videos of professional concerts in the recorder flute, adult
Oh
professional
wow.
playing the recorder flute. I was able to show them this one concert where it was just a soloist that had a soprano, alto, tenor, and baritone flute, recorder flute,
Hmm.
hanging. They had like an apparatus that had them hanging kind of at
Uh-huh.
at their chest level, so that within a given song, that soloist would, they'd have the band in the background, and that
Mm-hmm.
soloist would pick, depending on the part of the song that they were at, they would pick from the soprano
Wow.
to the tenor, and kind of go back and forth depending on that arrangement. So,
Hmm.
I would introduce it that we're going to watch a concert. Okay, y'all ready? Are you guys ready for this? No, okay, yeah, like okay, yeah, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You got the whatevers, and you got the
Right. Yeah.
you know,
Uh-huh.
and then I see, okay, we're going to watch recorder flute in concert. We're going to watch kids. I guess no, actually, we're going to watch a professional. Okay, wait a minute. They're going to play the recorder flute on a live stage in front of an audience. I'll tell in front of an audience. You know?
Uh-huh.
Okay, this happened in such and such place, and and then I would
Mm-hmm.
show them. I would show them through my big touchscreen apparatus there, and
Mm-hmm.
and then you get some of those students that'll be like, oh wow, like who'd have thought they could use an elementary known elementary instrument as a professional instrument,
Mm-hmm.
and so that would open up discussions among with me with them, and that would open up a lot of questions from them as well. So that's my experience with that. So with that being said, you know um, students will derive ideas of of grandeur when it comes to instruments and what they want to do
Mm-hmm.
through media. Media can be very helpful in that sense. you know
Yeah.
so
Huh.
it's so
Yeah.
you
Well,
introduce.
media can be the opposite way too, but
Yes, and yeah, that's why I said that.
yeah. But no, but that's really good because you can learn complete music theory on recorder flute,
Yeah,
and yeah, it's very inexpensive.
yeah.
So,
Mhm.
but then it can lead to any instrument that they want to learn,
Exactly.
and
So
so it opens doors. And I think that that's a really good point that you made though, because like art,
mhm.
we can do any form of art. Maybe you want to be a graphic designer, maybe you want to do it on the computer, but if you don't understand the art techniques with a pencil,
Mhm.
you're not going to have the art techniques on the computer.
Right.
And all of these different creative venues that our kids, it's like you said, the delusions of grandeur. They want to be this, to be perfect and at the end before they start at the beginning.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And to just be able to show them, just that there are professional artists and, musicians and all these people who can do incredible things with the very simplest of just instruments or, pencils, whatever they're given.
Yeah.
That is where the creativity comes from. It's from the person. It's not from what they use.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, just applying that option,
Mm-hmm.
the visual is key,
Mm-hmm.
really just applying that visual for them to see, that there's so many possibilities with, just picking it like your original question, just picking other instruments, what have they done, what artistry can come from other artists that have, and you can see it all on video. You can see it all in
Mm-hmm.
if you show it to them. That's really it. They gotta see it. They gotta see it to believe it, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, we're almost out of time. I was gonna ask. I have a couple other questions, but I want to ask you: is there anything you wanted to say before we wrapped up? Because I just want to make sure that you have some time to say what's on your heart.
Oh, it's on my heart. Well, it's it. I love doing what I do because what it is, again, what it has done for me, as far as music education is
I'm
concerned.
going to bring up your website too here.
Okay.
And if you're listening on the podcast, it's Mr. C's, so MRCS, homeschoolmusicacademy.com. So, yeah.
Thank you very much for that. So yeah, I do what I do because I've had teachers in the past, that had to discover me. I've had to kind of, as an individual, I've had to kind of reach out and try something else and try other things and really, yeah, just the trying. So
Yeah.
that's one of the things that you want to encourage. All homeschool parents want to encourage with their students, with their children, is to, the way you try and you kind of lead by example in that way. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you're trying all these other things. They need to learn how to try as well, and to have and to use
Right.
their voice to
Yeah.
say, yeah, I want to try this, I want to try that,
Mm-hmm.
because you don't know where it's going to lead.
Mm-hmm.
And all, again, as I said before, all the electives have a connection to all the other academic subjects that are, quote unquote necessary. Yes, they're necessary, but you can find a connection through the
Right.
electives,
Yeah.
that reinforces math and science, for instance. That's a
Mm-hmm.
big that's a big that's a big thing when it comes to music. Math and science are
Right.
definitely in there, but
Mm-hmm.
I always try to show my students as well that reading is also in there. Reading
Mm-hmm.
comprehension. One can understand what the song is about just by the mood of the song, and looking at the music notes in almost in the sentence structure form, because music also
Yeah.
tends to be a different language. And you can
Mm-hmm.
find social studies as well in music, because there's music history, there's
Yeah.
geography, where, different cultures, where does other types of music come from, all of
Mm.
that. And so, yeah, you can find all those connections. Mathematics, you have fractional names for the notes: a quarter note, a whole note, you know,
Right. Oh, yes.
and giving a
Uh-huh.
value. Okay, it's not just the counting of rhythm so much as you give a value to those fractional name
Mm-hmm.
notes, and you already understand length by understand distance of, or length of sound. You make
Mm.
that connection, and there's math happening right there. So.
Right.
Um, that music has helped me in a lot of those ways, and I just want to give to other students, what has been given to me,
Mm.
and that it has a blessing. So that's what I'm about.
That's awesome. Yeah. And there's so much to be learned as through music and arts and so many other things. Like you said, it's just it compounds, and it gives our children confidence in those areas that they feel like I'm dumb, I can't do school well, and we want them to know that they are smart and that they are gifted, and there are things that that maybe we don't focus on as much, but are very important. And yeah, so thank you for sharing tonight. This was a wonderful conversation, so much good information, and thank you all for joining us for this topic. I just want to thank Mr. C for his time.
Thank you for having me.
And yeah, and definitely check out his website and the services that he offers to parents to teach music at home. So it's awesome. So we're, like I said at the beginning, we just started a new month's theme, and we're talking about electives. Next week we're going to be talking with Adelaide. I probably will not say her last name right. Oglen from Talkbox Mom, and we're going to be talking about foreign language to help struggling students increase confidence. And so if you ever thought about adding a foreign language but thinking, oh, my student already struggles with English, she might have some good encouragement for you. So and also thank you Right Shop for sponsoring this episode of SPED Homeschool Conversations. We appreciate your support, and also for viewers like you who support us through your donations. We are 501c3, and so definitely check out our resources at spedhomeschool.com. We had a complete website redo this last weekend, so you'll have to check out our new space theme on our website. But we just want to thank Oswaldo for his time, for all the wisdom that you shared with us, and just encouragement on your new homeschooling year
Yes,
coming up.
Thank you so much. Yes.
Yeah. And just encouragement to all of you too. You can do this, and it's just one step at a time, through trial and error, as Oswaldo would say.
Trial and error.
So thanks everybody for joining us. We'll see you again next week right here on SPED Homeschool Conversations. Bye everyone.